Hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome to another interesting session of Muskaan, an initiative of Prabah Khaitan Foundation and Education for All Trust, presented by Shree Cement Limited. Prabah Khaitan Foundation is an organization based in Kolkata, founded by late Dr. Prabah Khaitan, dedicated to socio-cultural welfare and humanitarian causes. The foundation's initiative, Muskaan, aims at popularizing heritage literature and culture nationwide among children and young adults by weaving it into formal and informal education through various student activities. Some of the ways adopted to do this are cultural programs, storytelling sessions, theater, dance, music, and art.
Today we have among us Natasha Ballal. Natasha Ballal is a conservation educator. She has completed her master's in wildlife biology and environmental science. She has worked as a nature educator and as a researcher, assessing human-wildlife conflict, and has always worked at intersection of people and wildlife. Her interest has always been wildlife conservation. She has worked over a decade in conservation, creating awareness and educating different target groups on the environment and wildlife, especially focusing on its conservation. She worked with worldwide funds for nature as a senior education officer and strongly believes in the end we will conserve only what we love. We will love only what we understand, and we will understand only what we are taught. She hopes to inspire people to connect to the nature world and contribute towards creating a positive impact. I believe today's young generation understand the importance of conservation and would enjoy the session. So without taking any more time, I welcome Natasha ji on this platform and ask my young friends to get ready for a very interesting interactive session. Over to you, Natasha ji.
So welcome everybody for our session today. Our session is on wildlife conservation. I am Natasha, and I have always been an educator and a facilitator who talks about biodiversity, conservation, and I'm very, very passionate about it. I've joined a new school called the Kodaikanal Educational School, and I work as a social and environmental experience teacher. I'm so glad to be here and to connect with each one of you, and I hope each one of you get inspired to protect our biodiversity. So yes, let's look at wildlife conservation in India. So when we talk about conservation, what comes into our mind? Can we go to the next slide, please? Yes. So what we're going to cover is we're going to look at exploring. Can you please press it again? Click it. Yes. What is wildlife conservation? What is biodiversity? We're going to explore a big cat, one of our favorite species. We're going to look at how the planet report has come out and what kind of, what species are in danger and how the report shows the statistics. And we're going to look at endemism and what is endemic species. Okay, so that's what we have for today. So let me take you through it. So have you heard about biodiversity? What is biodiversity? You can write it in the chat box. What do you think is biodiversity? Yes. So can you put in the chat box? You can just drop it in. So it's a good interactive session with all of you all. I'm sure you all must be knowing, right? Yes, that's right. Yes. Biodiversity is a term for the variety of all life forms on Earth. Okay. So that's biodiversity. Yes, very right. So there's thousands of different habitats, millions of different species and billions of individuals and animals and trillions of different characteristics that come together. And this is our variety of life, which is biodiversity. So why is biodiversity important? Let's look at a small video that gives us a glimpse into biodiversity. Next slide, please, and click. Yes.
Biodiversity is a term that represents the total variety of all life on Earth. That's a big thing to sum up. Thousands of different wild habitats, millions of different species, billions of different individuals, and the trillions of different characteristics they all have. The total biodiversity of our planet is immense, which is a good thing, Because the more biodiversity, the more secure all life on Earth is, including ourselves. Only when life is at its most varied, vigorous, biodiverse, can we hope to thrive. We may not know it, but we need towering forests across 1/3 of the land surface to lock away carbon and keep the climate stable. We need millions of pollinators and billions of soil organisms and megatons of plankton to keep the food we eat in supply. We need strange plants deep in jungles to create our medicines, and coral reefs and mangrove swamps to protect the coasts we depend upon. Our planet's biodiversity provides all the things we need for free. But it will only do so if there's lots of it, and at the moment it's under attack. In the last 50 years, our activities have dramatically reduced biodiversity across the globe. We've snuffed out habitats, reduced populations of wild animals by 60%, and even driven whole species extinct. The number of lions in Africa has dropped by 65%. The number of individual flying insects in Europe has dropped by 75%. The number of bluefin tuna in the Pacific has dropped by 95%. Biodiversity is dropping everywhere and fast. This is catastrophic for nature and therefore ourselves. We talk about climate change a lot, but biodiversity loss is as important an issue. How do we stop this loss of life? How do we ensure that biodiversity, our planet's vital statistic, begins to increase again? In fact, we already know exactly what to do. Follow Our Planet, visit ourplanet.com and watch the series on Netflix.
Yes, that is Sir David Attenborough's voice. Yes. So this is a great documentary that actually showcases our planet, and it shows you what biodiversity is and how it's important for all of us to have healthy environment as well as being healthy individuals. So this is what biodiversity is. Now let's look at, yes, our next slide. Right. So when we talk about biodiversity, have you heard about biodiversity hotspots? India is a mega diverse country. Okay. And we have how many hotspots in India? Can you guess? Can you put it in the chat box and guess how many hotspots we have in India? Yes, the answer is 4. Do you know which 4 it is? Which 4 is it? So if you look at the presentation, it shows you the slide, right? And in the slide, it shows you, yes, the map. So we have around 36. But in India, how many hotspots we have? We have 4, right? So in these hotspots, which one is it? Any guesses? What is it? Okay, so there are 36 biodiversity hotspots in the world. Okay, and in India, you have 4. So which 4 are there? One is the Western Ghats. Okay, then the Northeastern, then you have the Himalayas, and we have Andaman Nicobar Islands. So those are the 4 places in India that you have the biodiversity hotspots. So there are 36, as I said, across the world. And India is a mega diverse country. And what makes it so unique is it has so many plants and animals that are endemic as well as unique to the landscape. Next slide. Yes. So have you heard what endemism is? Like, what is endemic species? What is it? Okay, so endemism is there is a species that is found only in one part, okay, one region and nowhere else in the world. You wouldn't find it anywhere else in the world. Okay, anybody, can you put examples in the chat box? Yes, they are rare and found only in one region. Yes, they're exactly. They're only found in one part. Okay. And what? Okay. What else could be? Let's think of India and what is endemic to Indian camel. Okay, but it's not endemic. Camels are not endemic. It's you can find another species somewhere else, but here we're saying we can't. So what is it? A tiger is also not an endemic species. You know which is an endemic species? One, have you heard of the lion-tailed macaque? They are an endemic species. Okay, that means you cannot find them anywhere else in the world. A tiger is not an endemic species because you find subspecies elsewhere. Okay, so we just click and show them the examples. So as I said, you have the lion-tailed macaque in the Western Ghats. You have the Asiatic lion in the Gir forest. Okay, in Assam, there's this small pygmy hog, okay, that is endemic to the forest there, and it's nowhere else. As I said, the Bengal tiger is not an endemic species. It is not. We have subspecies elsewhere. So, for example, Asiatic lion, lion-tailed macaque, you can see in the presentation, purple frog. In the Annamalai side, you find this unique species of frog. Okay, it's called the purple frog. Okay, it's like they found it only in 2017, earlier than that, because it used to be always underground. Okay, so they didn't know it existed till later on. Yes, that's right. And the Sangai deer, Nilgiri blue robin. Yes, these all are endemic species. Okay, so I think you got the gist of it. Excellent. So India has a lot of endemic species. Yes. Have you heard of the Nilgiri Tar in the Blue Mountains of the Western Ghats? You have the Nilgiri Tar. And there's another civet called the Malabar civet that is specific to this landscape, the Western Ghats. So like that, you have in the northeastern, you have the pygmy hog. Yes, the deer, the Sangai deer. Then in the south, you have the lion-tailed macaques, the purple frog, and you have the Asiatic lion, same way in the Himalayas. Okay. So these are your biodiversity hotspots and the endemic species. Yes, so let's explore our jungles. I'm sure all of you all know India is rich in biodiversity. It has unique plants and animal species that nowhere else and not many countries can boast of, right? Yes. So next, yes, it's the Bengal tiger. So the Bengal tiger is found across 19 different states in India. Okay, and 70% of the wild tiger population is in India. So important areas of forest which have tigers are called tiger reserves. So they get the utmost protection when they are called tiger reserves. Okay, even to cut down a tree, you need the right permissions in place so that you can cut down a tree, for example. So it has the highest amount of protection. So that's why it's very important if the landscape has tigers, that it's also protected and called a tiger reserve. Okay, so the legal rights are there. Yes. Yes, there are about 3,000 to 4,000 species of tigers in India alone, and those are wild tigers. Okay, that's great. So, what are the interesting facts about it? I'm sure all of you all love tigers, right? So, they weigh around 600 pounds, okay, and they're 6 to 10 feet long. So, that's really, really heavy. And a tiger can consume up to 80 pounds of meat at one time, okay? So, it hunts, right? It's a solitary animal and it hunts. And one meal, it can eat about 80 pounds. Okay, so it would ideally hunt, for example, say once a week. Okay, so that's how it would be. Tigers are mostly solitary, as I said. Only when it has its cubs, you'll find a female with its cubs. Okay, they're usually averaging about 2 to 4 cubs is what a female gives birth to. Just in case the cubs don't make it within a period of 1 month to 2 months, the female comes into heat again, and then she gives birth to the next set of cubs. Okay, this is only the chance of something can happen, right? And how do they mark their territory? Okay, so the individual, since they're solitary, how do they kind of let other tigers know, hey, I'm here? Okay, so this is where they mark their territory and their domain by scrapping the trees. Okay, they also poop, they rake up a lot of mud. Okay, they leave the scraps, they vocalize that I'm here. Okay, and they also have this response called the Fleming response. They put their tongue out where they take in the smell of the surroundings. Okay, if there's a female close by or if there's a male close by, they get all this information when they put their tongue out like that. It's called Fleming response. Okay. Yes. So in the wild, tigers have known to reach the age of 20, which is extremely great. Okay. So this is what a tiger is. And tigers form a crucial part of our ecosystem. Okay. And they're also part of the Indian culture. It's always been the tiger burning bright. If you see stories in the south or the north, there is always tigers in the cultural settings. So this is what the beautiful tiger is. Yes. Anybody knows how many tiger reserves are there in India? How many tiger reserves are there in India? 3. No. 4. No. More. Think of a little bigger number, not such small numbers. What are the numbers we think of? 100. Just a little lower than that. It's a bit. Come closer down. So we have 52 tiger reserves, okay, in India alone. So we have many protected forests that have a good population of tigers. Okay, so that's great news for us. Okay, now let's go to the next species, which is called the, what is this? What species is this? Is this 2 different species there, or is it just one? What is it? What do you all think? It's 2 different colors, right? Let me see your chat. Yes. What do you think? Is it the same species or is it different species? And what cat species is this? You can put it in the chat box. Let me see how many of y'all know the Indian species. Any guesses? Okay, so nobody's messaged us yet. Yes, so both of these are nothing but common leopards. Okay, they are the leopards. So there's a melanistic color, the darker pigmentation that gives it more of a blackish tone. That's about it. It's the same way with your white tigers. Okay, so the pigmentation, same way with the tigers which have more of a darker coloration. So remember that it's not a unique or a different species. It's the same species which has a genetic mutation. So that's what it is called. Okay. Now, as I said, the darker coloration is due to excess of a pigment called melanin. Okay. And the darker individuals are therefore called melanistic leopards. So in Assam also, there is a tiger that is more darker pigmentation because of the melanin content. So hence it looks more blackish. Okay. So that's just it. It's just the coloration. If it's lesser than that, and if it's more whiter, is when you have the leucistic. Okay, that's more whitish. Even some birds are known to have this coloration. Okay, now in all these big cats, the leopard is the most adaptable of these big cats. Okay, you usually find them in human habitation and very close to human habitation. Okay, they're known as sugarcane leopards. Okay, because they always dominate very close interaction with humans. They are listed as vulnerable under the IUCN Red List. Okay, so the IUCN Red List, they have a list that comes out with what animals or birds are vulnerable, endangered, okay, which is extinct, nearly getting endangered. So they have a list, and that's called the IUCN. Okay, and anybody knows the full form of it? It's the International Union of Conservation of Nature. Okay, so that's what it's known as. So yes, so you have the melanistic leopards and your common leopard. They're nothing but leopards at the end. So let's watch a small, little short animated documentary that shows you how leopards use the same landscape as people and how through a more awareness and a more coexisting approach, we can live among leopards.
Solitary and nocturnal, the leopard is probably the most adaptive of all the big cats in India. As human settlements grow around forests, leopards and humans find themselves sharing and using the same spaces. These changes have affected both leopard and prey behavior. Agricultural fields around forests attract the wild herbivores, who raid crops, often decimating entire farms. and causing enormous financial hardship. The leopard follows the wild herbivores, keeping their numbers in check. To the leopard, humans mean danger, but they also mean easy availability of food. Leopards have learned to navigate through human-dominated landscapes with ease. However, this sometimes leads to tragic consequences for both humans and leopards. Conflict with leopards can be considerably reduced by proactively adopting the following measures. Do not leave cattle unguarded. Clear shrubs and other vegetation around the house. Do not ever leave children alone to play. Do not relieve yourself in the open. Build lavatories to attend the calls of nature. Do not ever move around the forest alone. Keep the surrounding of the house well lit at night. Do not remain near a farm animal found killed or injured, but inform the forest authorities. Do not ever try to kill or drive away a leopard found lurking in the vicinity of the house. Instead, alert the forest authorities.
So if you know Mumbai, there's Sanjay Gandhi National Park, which is very close to Mumbai, right? It's the milk colony, and leopards live in this landscape. Even in Bangalore, in many urban cities, leopards inhabit the very similar habitat. So these are small important steps in how we can coexist with the species, okay? And just a short animated video that kind of shows you, just by taking small precautions, how we can live with these animals. Okay, so anybody, when you're looking at it, why are carnivores important? Why are they important? What do you think? Yes, they're very important because they represent as known as a keystone species, okay? And the ecosystem will depend on their survival, okay? So when you have keystone species, they're the top of the apex. So when they're there, you have a healthy ecosystem. For example, if you don't have a tiger or a predator in that landscape, you will have excess amount of herbivores, which will again destroy the ecosystem. It wouldn't let the grass grow, it wouldn't let plants grow. So there will be an imbalance. And this imbalance is very unhealthy. Hence, a healthy environment should have predators and these keystone species that enable and keep the forest functioning well. Okay, so this is very important. So one tiger in a large landscape will require so many amount of deer species or other species for to rely on food, and then it will also help in the ecosystem functioning. So hence these are known as keystone species. Even elephants, have you heard of Malabar pied hornbills? They're all known as keystone species. Okay, so this is why carnivores also are very important in our landscape. And as I said, the predators like the leopard and the tiger are the top predators in the apex of your food chain. So it's very vital to have a healthy ecosystem. Yes. So coming to our planet's report. So this is a Living Planet report, which is produced by WWF every 2 years. It's like a health check for the planet. How is it doing? And what this means to us as humans, okay? Just like if you were to measure a human, your blood pressure, your eyesight, you can also measure the planet's health by measuring things like temperature, the volume of the ice sheets, the biodiversity, okay, how many animal and plants are in danger, etc. So this uses biodiversity as an indicator, and hence we need to see how our planet is faring. Yes. So if you look at this is a living planet report, okay, which is basically all life forms. So this living planet index measures the difference in animal populations, okay, and put it together and analyze it in a living planet index. So if you look at this, you can see there are camera traps, GPS tracking through satellite images, through field observations. Okay, there's also citizen science projects which help in recording biodiversity. Citizen science projects is people like you and me who might be interested in wildlife, and we can contribute to the data that scientists will be compiling. Okay, it could just be simple things like bird watching, keeping an eye whether migrant populations are coming or not, and this all does add up to a scientist's data. Okay, you can also tell a scientist like this is a new recorded species in a new area. So this is absolutely great opportunity for anybody to become a scientist, right? Then you have field recordings, you have camera traps in place. Some of them use live trapping to get to know the species if it's very, very solitary, okay, and rare. Then also through tracks and dung. Okay, so many times when it's difficult to spot, and if the populations are lesser, they use different techniques like even genetics. Okay, so this is what your LPR says. So it looks at changing in size and populations, it looks at global wildlife populations, and how through all of this, the biodiversity is faring. Next, please. Yep, so what is the report telling us? So if you look at that, this graph shows you the Living Planet Index for 2020. Okay, that's already 2 years ago. And if you look at this, is it a big, or like, what does this graph tell you? Like, what is it showing? Can anybody let me know? What is it showing? Can you put that in the chat box? What does the report show? Well, if you look at the population size, you can see that the population of mammals, fish, birds, reptiles has declined by 68%. Okay, so that's the huge number that we have, right? And why do you think this is happening? What could be the reasons for it? We are seeing a massive decline in populations, right? What is the reason for it? You can just give it one word in the chat box. Any guesses? I think we have a whole list, right? We have habitat loss, climate change is affecting populations. What else? There's fragmentation, not enough resources for our wildlife to feed on, right? So there's immense amount of loss, right? So that's what the Living Planet report shows, that is 68% since 1970. We've seen a massive decline in populations across mammals, the amphibians, fishes, etc. So that's where there's a rapid decline. Yes, you can go to the next slide. Yes, if we look at our freshwater ecosystems, we can look at even our oceans, animals like beaver, river dolphins, sturgeons, all of them are facing a decline. It's so important to protect critical wetland habitats and end overfishing, because they really affect the biodiversity, right? When overharvestation is done, our populations do not have the chance to recover. Okay, and that's what leads to overharvesting and biodiversity loss. So population sizes have decreased 84%, okay, in the past 50 years itself. So that's a huge decline in populations. Yes. Right. So if you look at the slide, okay, now 1/3 of the food that is produced around the world, okay, is never eaten. It's wasted. Either it's packaged, transported, the food, doesn't reach the venue in a good condition. So there's a lot of loss of food wasted, including gases which are released, right? So how do we stop this food wastage? How do we not let food, reach the right resources and the right people on time? So these are very critical questions, and which should be asked and done. Okay, so it's the same way. If you look at wetlands, there's 90% of global wetlands have been lost since the 1700s. And wetlands, as I said, are very critical ecosystems, even for urban habitats, because that's where our water resource, the water that we use, comes from. The next one. Yep. Yeah. So food wastage is a huge resource getting wasted, right? Yes. The next one. Yep. So when you look at this kind of report card, what is it telling you? It says nature is declining, populations of wildlife have decreased, the humans are the cause and loss of biodiversity, sadly, right? We have contributed over the last 50 years to industrial revolution, which has led to pollution, it has led to climate change, food is wasted, we are producing food, but it's not reaching it to the right resource people. We need to find ways where we can store our food more, so that we get the best out of our food and it doesn't go down the drain. Okay, what we eat, the food on our plate, is so vital. Okay, and why does this matter? Why do you think biodiversity matters? What is it? Do we humans need biodiversity? Do we need nature? Yes, we absolutely do, right? It's very important for our health and well-being. Okay, we're so intricately linked to the biodiversity and nature around us. It's essential we bend the curve. We do not let it decline further, but we look at populations, okay, progressing and meeting their stable population size. It's so important we share our habitat with them. Okay, so these are all the causes. As I said, climate change puts pressure on ecosystems. 30% of land is used for agriculture. One third of all the food is lost or wasted, right? So there's loss of nature, which has global economic impacts. Biodiversity is essential for not only our food security, but also for our health, and also where our medicines come from. Okay, because there's some endemic species which is very great in the medicinal value. Okay, so we need to keep our forests also to discover new um, medical innovations for us. Okay, so that's why. And how do we bend this curve? We each can take part in it and we can restore nature. Okay, it's so important we make conscious decisions every day which have an impact on our environment. Yes. So what do you think we can do together, right? Have you heard of the 4 R's? What are the 4 R's? Recycle. What is it? Recycle, reduce. Do you remember what the 4 R's are? So reduce it at your source point, okay? Rethink, recycle. So these are very important things, and rethinking it is so important because it helps before the first whole step takes off, okay? So those are your R's. Yes, so when we're looking at it, maybe we can stop doing it altogether. Maybe we can do one thing a little less. Do we really need it? It could be questioned. So that's also something that's very important. And the next one, yes. So how do we go about it? There are many ways we can bend the curve, right? So you can choose products with no single-use plastic. So single-use plastics is something that you use only once. Okay, it could be something also that you use once over a longer period of time. So it's just a use and throw product. Okay, so that's called single-use plastics. Okay, and there's a huge amount of single-use plastics available. So make a conscious choice of not buying single-use plastics if you can. Okay, do not waste food. Wasting food is a great resource wastage. Okay, check your energy consumption at home. It leads to climate action, right? How do we protect nature? By using less energy and making sure there's enough of energy for everybody. So same way, buy local foods and products, because if you buy something that's from a global space, there's a huge shipment that has to come in. So there's such a big carbon footprint. Okay, so use local products, use local food that's available around you. Again, reduce pollution and make sure to recycle. Recycling is such an important step, even in your at home. It starts at home, right? And act local. Think globally, but act locally. Okay, it could just be small steps that you take, but it leads to bigger changes in the long run. Okay, and always save water. Make sure water resources is not wasted. And as I said, you can become a citizen scientist. You can observe nature and spread awareness around you. Just like how today I'm taking the session, you can also spread this awareness, spread the knowledge, and help somebody gain insight into these topics. Yes. Do you have any questions for me? So remember your 4 R's, okay? It's nothing but reduce, reuse, recycle, and recover. Okay, so those are your 4 R's that come together. And as I said, the male, when leopards have more of a darker pigmentation, it's called melanistic. In tigers, when there's a loss of a pigment, that's why they're white in color. It's known as leucistic. Okay, so those are the two important things I'm sure you would have learned newly.
Noted, Venus. Can you repeat the name, the term you used when for tigers? When they use the pigment known as white tiger, so you or something.
Right. I think your voice is breaking up a little bit for me. But so what we're looking at is when you're talking about leopard, when a darker pigmentation, even it could be a tiger, when there's a darker pigmentation, it's known as melanistic. Okay, that's the melanin content. Yes. So the darker individuals are therefore called melanistic. The coloration is due to the excess of a pigment called melanin. So hence it's known as melanistic. Okay. With the tiger, there's a loss of a pigment, hence is known as leucistic. 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 So there's a partial loss of a pigment that leads to this white coloration. Okay. It's not a different species, it's the same Bengal tiger. Okay. Yes. Tell me. Yes, your hand is up. You can tell me. I don't know your
I
name.
wanted to ask you, Ma'am, how can saving electricity contribute to wildlife?
Yes, that's a very good answer. You know where all the electricity and water comes from? In every city, where does it come from?
Ponds and lakes and rivers.
It all comes from forests. Forests act like sponges, right? So they absorb the water and they let out the water slowly over a period of time. That's how you consistently have water, right? In forests. So every forest, whether it's a tiger reserve, say in Bangalore, okay, I'm talking about a city like Bangalore, most of electricity comes from Kali Tiger Reserve. That's in Dandeli side. Okay, so it has this Kali River where there's a nuclear power plant that has an energy source which provides electricity to many big cities like Bangalore. Same way, the water is diverted from many of our wildlife sanctuaries and tiger reserves to come and make sure that bigger cities have fresh water. Okay, and sometimes even the forests have droughts, but we might have water in cities. So there's a direct link between us using energy sources, okay, and the forest.
Okay.
And that's where we should realize it comes from.
One more thing, could you please repeat those 4 spots? Andaman Nicobar Islands, Western Ghats, Himalayas, and
The northeastern region.
okay, thank you.
Yes. That's the Indo-Malayan side, right? That's where it comes. Yes. So it has 4 biodiversity hotspots. You have a lot of endemic species in these landscapes.
Ma'am,
Yes.
am I audible?
Yes, you are. I can see you.
So, ma'am, why do cheetah have spots on his body? Why don't he have a plain skin?
So we don't have the Asiatic cheetah got extinct, okay, in the 1940s, right? When the last cheetah was hunted. So this could be evolution that it protected that animal, that it has spots. Okay, same way it's called rosettes, right? So the leopards also have them on it. So it's a little different. Same way tigers have stripes. They might look orange and really bright, but in the forest, you don't get to see them. It all helps in camouflaging, right? So that's why they have this kind of coloration. You think it's so obvious, but when you go into the forest, they just absolutely camouflage with the background, right? So yeah, that's why they have their spots and rosettes, to make sure they just blend in.
Ma'am, my doubt is that how is food wastage is related to animals?
Again, habitat loss is one of the things we talk about, right? And why do you think habitat loss is happening? The pressure for producing more food resources for the people, right? There's a huge population we have in India. So how do we have enough land to produce enough food for them? So a lot of the forest, areas on the fringes of the forest is agricultural lands. Okay. And again, you're using to produce more food resources, you're taking more land, right? So obviously, the more land we take, and where is land now available? So we're going to kind of have this kind of battle because we need more land. So if we use our resources wisely, we wouldn't have to come to a position to overtake that land. Okay, so it's very vital we understand where our food comes from, right? Again, the food where we come from is near tiger reserves a lot of times. So the water energy sources is coming from the forest, right? So if you waste, it's a huge resource that has gone down the drain, where there's so much of effort that's put in manually, but also resources from the environment, is used. Did that answer your question? Yes, good. Anybody else?
Ma'am, what were the two types of the color changing in chicken? What was the term called?
Can you just say it again? You're not very audible.
Ma'am, the two terms which are used for the color changing in leopards and tigers.
Yes, that is so.
Makes it more dark.
The darker pigmentation is known as melanistic. Okay, that's due to the melanin pigment. There's a partial loss of a pigment in tigers when they become white. It's known as leucistic. Okay, you can read more about it. You'll get a lot of information. There are some birds also that is more whitish in color. So yeah, don't confuse it with albinism. Remember, there's another thing where they're white with red eyes, some species. That's again different. Albinos, yeah.
Hello, ma'am. Hello, ma'am. I actually wanted to ask you that how many shots are there in India?
How many?
I wanted to ask you how many spot shots are there in India?
Hotspots.
Yes.
Yes, there are 4. So one is your Western Ghats, you have the Himalayas, the Indo-Malayan region, that's in northeastern India, and you have the Andaman and Nicobar Island side. That's also very unique. Yes. Even Sri Lanka and Western Ghats are very similar. Totally, there are 36 also in the world.
Ma'am, I want to ask that being students, what can we do to protect wildlife?
So there's quite a few things I think a lot of y'all can do. One is, being aware is very important. A lot of y'all get to visit tiger reserves, right? So it's very important to make sure when you visit a tiger reserve to abide by the rules of the tiger reserve. Okay. So when y'all are traveling, say, for example, in a safari cab, make sure they don't go fast. Okay. And just because somebody wants to see a tiger, that doesn't mean they have to rush through a forest. There is so much other biodiversity that you can see. 2, as I said, your water sources come and energy comes from forests. So please use it judiciously. Okay. A lot of times people don't realize what is illegal wildlife. So having, for example, say a parrot at home, right, which is protected under this scheduled species. A lot of them don't realize it's illegal to have it, right? Same way with peacock feathers. Don't fuel the trade and buy peacock feathers. Okay, a lot of households do end up buying, right? And that's a huge illegal activity because they kill peacocks so that these feathers are available and people buy it. So these are the changes you can make. Don't fuel illegal wildlife trade. Okay. 2 is use resources judiciously. And whenever you visit a tiger reserve, make sure, there's no screaming, shouting, make people aware, educate them, that this is the home of these animals. They're not in cages, they're free and they're wild. Okay, so we have to honor that and we should know what we shouldn't do. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
You can also be a citizen scientist if you'd like, there are a lot of NGOs that require young adults. If you get onto eBird, for example, you can put on your sightings of birds. Okay, so there's a lot of platforms out there where you can learn more about it, as well as, be a citizen scientist to provide information to these NGOs that gather data.
Ma'am?
Yes.
I have a doubt. I've heard that flamingos change color from white to pink when they are migrating or something. When they uh, when they meet the water, they change their colors from white to pink. So
Which one are you talking about?
pink?
Which bird?
Flamingos. Flamingos.
Flamingos.
Oh, okay, okay. Yes, yes, yes.
So which type of pigment would they have? Would they have the same pigment which you told in the session now, or
No,
they
no,
would
no,
have a
no,
different
no.
pigment?
No, it's not at all. So flamingos are basically they eat a certain carotenoid that gives them the coloration. Okay, the pink. When we're looking at white tigers, as it's a partial loss of a pigment. Okay, so that's why it makes it white in color. That is called leucistic. So same way there is a darker pigmentation. Okay, which is called a melanistic leopard. Okay, like your black panther, what you call, but they are still the same. Okay, so for example, flamingos, they feed on a certain diet, and that's what gives them their pink color.
Okay.
Yeah.
Natasha, you want to take up more questions or because
Yeah, no problem.
Yes, ma'am. I have a doubt. Ma'am, less pigment in leopards will cause black in color or white in color.
So usually you usually get melanistic leopards. Okay, you don't get white leopards. Okay, so that's usually the darker coloration, and it's also important for camouflage. So for example, like you have the cheetahs which have rosettes, it helps them with camouflage. Same way with tigers, with leopards, all of it is a camouflage. So it goes into the background. So many times in tropical forests, which have more denser vegetation, is where you'd find leopards which have a darker pigmentation, right? Because the forest is more darker. Okay, there's not much sunlight that reaches the ground floor. So hence you have your leopards that have a dark coloration, they would camouflage better. Okay, and there are lesser species to feed on, so they have to be more the camouflage should work for them as well as their stealth. Okay, so these kind of things help make them be the top predator in that landscape.
Ma'am, what are like the methods of wildlife conservation?
What are the methods? Are you saying what you can do, or what is wildlife conservation, or how you can be a wildlife conservationist? What is it?
How they protect the animals?
Okay, are you asking you will protect, or you're asking generally what is wildlife conservation? I just wanted to understand that.
Ma'am,
Can you tell
like
me?
what they do for them?
Okay.
she means WWF, I think so.
Oh, okay. I see every organization take up steps to protect the species, right? For example, there would be different NGOs that work in different landscapes that work towards the species in those landscapes. There are some NGOs that work on mountain bird species called the Sky Islands, okay, where they work on specific endemic species that is found in this landscape in the Western Ghats. And a lot of NGOs like WCS, WWF, CWS, they work on researching about tigers, for example, or other species like doles, wild dog. So each of them kind of research about these species. They also research would be one component. Another component would be where they educate people. It could be the urban set of individuals, or it could be the people who live close to the habitat and who get to see these animals roll up close. What are the measures that can be taken? You saw the leopard video, right, which showed you if a leopard comes into a human habitation, what to do and what not to do. So this also is created keeping in mind that many people who live near the forest fringes, they will have leopards coming to their habitat, okay, because they share the same habitat. So hence, these are vital things that many NGOs take part. One is research could be a component. Another one will be conservation, where they do a lot of outreach work, okay. So these are the steps that they take. And some of them will fight, court cases to make sure that the land is protected for the animals. So there are different ways that people protect and work towards conservation. There are different programs also in place. So yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you for this opportunity. And I thank all of you all for coming together and listening into the talk. And I hope each one of you all will do great things for, the biodiversity around you. You don't have to necessarily go into a tiger reserve, but just, look at the places around you, the species that are around you, and, get to see them, hear them, and protect them.
It was amazing session where children were absolutely enwrapped listening to you. With rapt attention, they were listening to you.
Thank
So
you.
on behalf of the foundation, I would like to thank Ms. Natasha Ballal. Natasha, thank you once
so much.
again for
Thank
this
you.
lovely interactive session. I would also like to thank our presenter, Sri Cement Limited and Education for All Trust. Last but not the least, a very big thank you to our young listeners and viewers. Without their enthusiasm, this session would not have been successful. And what beautiful questions they've asked. I mean, I was really impressed. So stay well and stay safe, everybody. Goodbye for now and have a great weekend.